Hey guys, so for this video, I'm going to be doing something a little different and talking about the current state of Fortnite. This video was inspired by two other amazing videos from Kiwis and CypherPK. Definitely make sure you check them out. Both of them basically talk about all the main issues in the game right now that are plaguing both casual players, competitive players, and kind of the community in general. What I wanted to do though was not repeat what they said, because obviously you've seen it twice already. Rather, I wanted to take the other stance and not necessarily defend Epic, because I don't believe they need to be defended. I more so wanted to play devil's advocate and give their perspective, so all of you guys watching will have a fuller picture and can come to your own conclusions. I don't know if it's just me, but when I was reading a lot of the comments on their videos, or kind of the response on Twitter, a ton of people were saying that they just couldn't wrap their head around a specific choice or a specific decision that Epic made. When I've personally worked at different Fortune 500 companies, I've worked in their operations, so I understand how a business works. I also studied economics and business in college, which isn't a knock to other YouTubers, but a lot of them just don't understand the inner workings of an actual business. But that's kind of my background and how I believe I can do a good job explaining Epic's point of view, even though a lot of you guys might not like to hear it. One last thing before we start though is to keep in mind, I am not defending Epic. I don't think all of their decisions were right, or even very many of them. All I'm trying to do here is give you Kiwi's and Cypher's side, which is shared by most of the community, and then give you the POV of Epic Games, because absolutely nobody has shared it, and I feel like way too many people in the community just regurgitate what their favorite streamer or content creator says, and not very many of them actually come to their own conclusions. Hopefully that changes here today, but with that being said, let's get into the video. Starting off, both of them talked about communication, and communication is a huge part of any game, let alone Fortnite, the biggest game in the world. Now, unless you live under a rock, you should know Epic basically stopped communicating with the community in any way. They stopped doing blog posts explaining the patch notes or really any of their decisions. They stopped streaming events on Twitch. They basically haven't said a word to us except back at the start of Season 2 with the competitive blog post that just outlined all the rules and stuff. Outside of that being weird, because Epic was always very responsive in the beginning, the main problem with communication is its effect on the competitive scene and any player who wants to take the game seriously. These are guys that are playing the game almost every single day, and they need to know what's going on, yet Epic chooses to leave them in the dark. Instead of just formally outlining a change, like say if they nerf the Scar's damage, they just leave it up to people on Twitter or YouTube like me to find out the changes and basically guess and say, yes, these are the changes that happened. Alright, now let's take Epic's POV. So from Epic's perspective, they basically don't want to release patch notes because of the huge community outrage that will happen, and I guarantee it still will, just like it happened in the past. Basically, Epic would release the patch notes right as the servers would go offline, so everyone would look at them before the game even came back up, and I kid you not, immediately everyone would go to Twitter and just absolutely dump on Epic and roast the game, saying, oh, this is the worst patch ever. How could they make this change? When in reality, they hadn't even played the game. And trust me, I do understand a lot of Epic's decisions were very bad and stupid for competitive. Obviously things like the planes and the sword, just looking at the patch notes, I would agree are bad changes. However, you can't throw a fit when you don't even try it yet and get all of your followers to think the same thing before they even play the game as well. Imagine you're a casual player who follows Tfue on Twitter, and you're really excited for the new patch, when all of a sudden you see Tfue say it's the worst and it's ruined the game. What do you think players like that are gonna think? A majority of them are gonna think the same thing as Tfue when they haven't even arrived at their own conclusion and start saying the same exact thing, or even worse, not even want to play. And to me, that's one of the bigger reasons I think Epic stopped patch notes. They obviously know what they're doing, and it's not just because they want new players to find all the new changes and to be surprised. It's more so because they're just sick of everyone in the community completely bashing and dumping on their new patches, when literally all of them, because remember, this is when the servers weren't even back up yet, none of them even played those new patches. So again, I do not agree with Epic's radio silence. However, I do kind of see where they're coming from and why they stopped it altogether. Moving on to the second topic, and that is skill-based matchmaking. Skill-based matchmaking in Fortnite, if you guys don't know what that is, it's basically in public matches where you get matched up against someone of equal skill. In the beginning, Fortnite did not have this, and you could go up against anyone no matter how good or bad they were. Then, once everyone got really good, they had to implement this to stop the new players from getting absolutely crapped on. The main complaints with it I see are basically that it makes matches too sweaty because you're going up against someone of equal skill. You also can't really relax and have fun, and content creators like Kiwis can't even do challenge videos anymore because they'll just get ganged up upon by a bunch of really good players. Okay, but what about Epic's perspective? The big dilemma Epic was faced with was that new players, like I said before, were losing and dying in every single match, and as a result, just stopped playing. This was around season 9 or 10, I believe, and that was at a point where everyone was good, so if you're a new player and you're getting put against people like Bungee, and obviously you would not stand a chance, so Epic, trying to protect these new players and not get them to quit, puts them in lobbies against bots, not bad players bots, like literal robots, and puts them against players of the same skill level, aka other not so good players. Seems pretty smart and straightforward, right? Well, what most people don't understand is that it's obviously worked. If Epic put it in the game and people were still leaving at the same rate, they would have taken it out. Instead though, they have the numbers that nobody else sees, and they're seeing that new players are staying much more compared to the old players that are leaving because of it. You guys gotta realize, Epic is a billion-dollar company and they are very, very smart. I know they seem dumb and you guys might think they are, even though half of you are in high school and you haven't even taken a college business class, but believe me when I say Epic is extremely smart. They know that new players will never stay if there's no skill-based matchmaking. And as for everyone saying that it ruins the casual aspect of the game, the thing about that is when people say they want to relax and just get kills, that's basically ruining the game for casual players. Nobody should be forced to play against Bungee and die every single game just because they're new, all for you to have fun. Do you really think those players are having fun just dying every single game? Of course, dropping 20 kills is gonna be really fun when you can just sit back and relax to do it, but on the other hand, is it even that impressive? I would much rather watch someone drop 10 kills against good players than drop 20 kills on really bad players. Another thing people tend to forget about skill-based matchmaking is that it's not based on stats solely. Nobody actually knows what exactly it's based around. Epic hasn't said it, nobody has figured it out, so I don't really understand why everyone thinks they know exactly how it's tracked. I also don't think it's right to say that every game with skill-based matchmaking has failed, because look at League of Legends. Their comp scene is amazing, their esports are amazing, and their casual scene is actually pretty good.
But Jerian, what about forced crossplay?
When it comes to skill-based matchmaking, not stat-based or anything like that, that means Epic's going to put a PC player, regardless of their certain specs or ping, they're gonna put them based on their skill level up against people of similar skill on console, mobile, and Nintendo Switch. So that player on PC might have 240 FPS, but they might be an absolute bot and really, really bad. That's why it's skill-based and nothing else, because you're putting two players of equal skill up against each other, not equal FPS or equal ping or equal wins or equal kills, equal skill. Lastly, for content creators, yes, skill-based matchmaking does suck. People like Kiwis and Cypher can no longer go into games and just troll around for a video, but remember, those content creators make up 0.000001% of the entire player base. I'm not saying it's okay for those guys to be shafted. All I'm saying is that those issues don't really come into play for the average player or the majority of the player base. After that, Kiwis talked about how he would get new players to stay, basically by putting different in-game tutorials for new players and kind of giving them a separate noob mode. I agree with all of that completely. I can't say anything bad about it. I'm honestly not sure why that isn't in the game yet. The videos could be as simple as different settings, how to build, how to edit, just stuff like that. For all I care, they could even add my videos, like it's really that simple. I guess they're just lazy, and again, no communication, so we'll never know. onto the comp loot pool, aka the competitive loot pool, and I hear a lot of people say that they don't like the mythic weapons because they're too overpowered and they're way too strong and broken. This basically comes down to a matter of opinion, but from Epic's perspective, remember this is not mine, they basically see it like this. Obviously anything mythic above legendary is going to be insanely strong, but that's the whole point of them. They're not supposed to be balanced. And before you say anything, I know that may sound stupid from a competitive standpoint, but remember, this is Epic Games. Anyways, what they think is that with all these new locations, the Shark, the Grotto, the Agency, the Rig, and the Yacht, all these new locations force competitive players to make the decision of whether they should land there or not. Everyone on the map knows how good those weapons are, where they will be, and how you can get them. It's not RNG to land at the Shark and win the spot and then get all the good loot. Epic Games feels like they created a very interesting dynamic between landing safe, where no one else will be, or landing at one of the new spots, which will have way more people at them, but the trade-off is that there's really good loot. So it's kind of that really old dynamic of high risk, high reward versus low risk, low reward. And another thing I just remembered is that back in Chapter 2 Season 1, when the loot pool was really balanced and was really good, a majority of the competitive players said it was way too boring. Now they're totally against it, when just a month ago they were not. If you want my personal thoughts on the comp loot pool, I can see where Epic is coming from, but I just do not agree with heavy snipers being able to one-shot people with over 150 health and shield. Even things like RPGs I just don't find too skillful, which is kind of Epic's main problem. They try to balance the competitive and the casual scene at the same time using the same decisions, when in reality that does not work and it never will work. Speaking of competitive, one of the biggest complaints is the prize pool and how it's been divided between PC and console and mobile. If you guys didn't know, the prize pool is equally split between those two different groups. Kiwis and most pro players disagree with this because console and mobile are just not as competitive as PC. There's no denying all the best players are on PC, whether they're on keyboard and mouse or controller, they are on PC, so from a competitive standpoint, that's where all the money should be. From Epic's standpoint, they're basically saying console and mobile players buy just as much or even more V-Bucks than people on PC, so why can't they get equal money for tournaments and cash cups? All the money that gets funded to competitive is from V-Buck purchases and from different collaborations with Star Wars and all the different advertisements they've done in the past. So what Epic is thinking is that if console and mobile and Switch players put just as much money into the game, why can't they get just as big of a prize pool? That not only will get more people on those platforms to play in these cash cups and tournaments, but it will also get more players to move to PC and to invest more into the game through V-Buck purchases and just playing more. So trust me, I understand why it sucks from a competitive standpoint if you're a pro player, but marketing wise, this is absolutely genius. There has never been a game that has open tournaments online every single week where the only requirement is that you have to be kind of decent at the game. Anyone, even little Timmy at home playing on a 40-inch TV, can log online and make money through the game. That has been and probably never will be possible again in any esport or any big competitive game. If you think of League of Legends or Rocket League, games like those, they only have something like 50 top tier pro players who make money because all of them have pro leagues where you need to be signed to a team, you need to be 18, you need to go through a bunch of jumps and hurdles in order to get there. Basically, their competitive scenes are extremely small and closed off. Fortnite, on the other hand, hosted a $10 million tournament open to everyone that happened in 2 days, where something like over 10,000 different players received money. That's more people making money than pretty much every game's pro scene combined. And evidently it's working because if you guys didn't know, more people played the second week of the Duo FNCS, which was the one 2 weeks ago. More people played in that than in the second week of the World Cup. The World Cup was for $40 million and a trip to New York City, while Duo FNCS was a total prize pool of something like $4 million. I know, a lot of it has to do with quarantine and with different prize pools and the fact a whole different region was added, but the fact that many people are playing competitive Fortnite is all Epic needs to see to reassure themselves that they're doing a good job. My personal opinion on the matter, by the way, is that I do think console and mobile should get their own prize pool. They buy buy a ton of V-Bucks and they're a huge reason the game is thriving like it does. Plus, not everyone has enough money or the room for a PC, so I do think they deserve their own prize pool. I'm just not sure how valid splitting it equally is from a competitive standpoint. Next major topic is server performance and ping, which I really cannot disagree with Kiwis on. The current FPS and ping I get in game feels like trash. It feels like there's a ton of input delay when I build or edit, and that's coming from someone who's on 0 ping and 240 FPS. Even worse are these pro lobbies that you see in the FNCS weeks. These guys are lagging around and teleporting. Half the time they can't even build or shoot. I'm just curious on what's going on behind the scenes, especially with the Chaos engine, because that's what's causing most of this poor performance. The Chaos engine was added back at the start of Chapter 2, and everyone thought it would make a big difference in the game's performance, and some people like me thought it would actually change the core mechanics around. Luckily, it did not, but it really did affect everyone's performance. Also, I think it messed up the coin flip mechanic. Epic has said it's working as intended, but Cypher did a bunch of tests and kind of proved that it's not, so that's definitely something I would like to see fixed, and something I can't really give Epic's perspective on because, again, I don't work there, I'm not a developer, and I don't know what's going on behind the scenes. The second to last big complaint is controller players. Now, I'm sure most of you guys have seen the general notion and basically what everyone thinks in the community. People think aim assist on PC is way too strong. Top controller players like CRR and Scoped believe this too, and they basically said that linear and exponential made way too many not so good controller players way better. I also saw them say that before all of these new settings were around, there were only like 3 or 4 good controller players. There was Ghost Camo, Ghost Issa, Ghost Aiden, and Unknown Army. Just thinking about that now, that's actually a huge reason why I think Epic made aim assist so strong. Back in the day, it was basically only good keyboard and mouse players that made up the pro scene, which didn't necessarily discourage controller players from trying to play competitive, but the fact there weren't many was definitely a problem in Epic's eyes. So what they basically did is said, okay, controller players cannot build as fast or edit as quickly, let's just give them really good aim assist so their aim makes up for it. On top of that, let's give them these new sensitivity options that will make their building and editing better, all while also giving them not very much bloom and less recoil. That way, more controller players will rise up, people on console will try to move to PC, and the whole competitive scene will be equal between keyboard and mouse and controller players. This does make sense from a business or a marketing standpoint, but I think we're slowly getting to a point where controller players are going to outnumber the keyboard and mouse players, and unless Epic nerfs aim assist, there's really no other way to stop it. Just look at all the top players in Cash Cups, and all of them are on controller. And you might say that's not the case for big tournaments like the World Cup or the FNCS, but I believe if you gave NRG Zate's brain to a controller player, I really don't think they would ever lose a tournament. Players like Wolfies and Atlantis Leche can edit and build just as fast or even faster than keyboard and mouse players, and on top of it all, they can triple dink you out of the sky without even trying. So to me, I do see Epic's perspective on this one, but I really do think aim assist needs to be toned down a little. There should never be people like NRG Epic Whale who jump into boxes without a shotgun and with a gold drum gun, and they know for a fact they will win the fight because their aim assist is way better than any keyboard and mouse player's aim will ever be. For the final thing I saw Kiwis touch upon is that the community can do better. I was definitely part of this problem way back in the day, but I do agree that everyone should be a little more constructive. A lot of these really big influencers don't understand how big their platform is and how easy it is to subconsciously change someone's mind. Things like hashtag RIP Fortnite are not good for the game in any way. Just be more constructive and say things like hashtag fix Fortnite, or if you want something nerfed, do hashtag nerf aim assist, but hashtag RIP Fortnite just kills Fortnite even more and makes less people want to play it, which should not really be your goal. And I guarantee there's a bunch of edgy 14-year-olds who are watching this and saying,
It is my goal, I hope Fortnite dies.
well, most people do not, they just want the game to be fixed. So I know this message won't get through to everyone, and I know you guys are gonna be like, don't you have beef with this X-Row? That beef is fake, by the way, I just think it's a funny joke. All I'm asking is to be a little nicer in your critique critiques and actually be constructive instead of just saying, oh, this patch is garbage or Epic Games sucks. Actually tell them why they suck. Overall guys, that's the current state of Fortnite and how we got here. If you did enjoy the video, do be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel down here, and to turn on post notifications. Shout out to everyone using code GeFortnite, and an even bigger shout out to everyone that watched this far. Hopefully you guys enjoyed videos like these, and maybe I'll make some more in the future. Otherwise, that's it from me, and I will see you guys in the next one. Later.